So this is the top of the Great Pyramid of Giza. There's roughly about 40 feet of walking space at the summit. Now, according to ancient tradition, the capstone is supposed to be the most important piece of the pyramid. It's the piece that gives it its purpose. No one knows for sure what happened to the capstone atop Giza. Some records, even as far back as 2,000 years ago, have it missing. Now, the whole pyramid was covered with polished limestone, and because of that, sunlight would have reflected off its surface, and according to sources, it shone like a star and was visible from great distances. It's believed that the capstone was either made of gold or covered in a layer of gold. But what happened to it, and even though it's very likely if it even did have a capstone, remains one of the greatest mysteries of the Great Pyramid. So this is a perspective on just how immense the Great Pyramid of Giza is. It's estimated to have been constructed with over 2 million bricks. The bricks weigh between 2 and 15 tons. For context, that means some of them weigh more than an elephant. The Sphinx acts as protector of the pyramid. The ancient Egyptians built the Sphinx anywhere they were seeking spiritual protection, like in tombs and temples. So the Great Sphinx guards the Great Pyramid. Scientists are still debating how the Egyptians had the knowledge to align the structures to precisely true north. The Great Pyramid is aligned to geographic north to within 1/10 of a degree. There's a massive gash in the side of one of the 3 pyramids at Giza. We obviously know about the 2 giants. The Pyramid of Menkaure is the smallest of the 3. In the year 1196, there was a sultan named Al-Aziz Uthman. He ordered to have all 3 of the pyramids destroyed, most likely in search of this treasure. Now, they started with Menkaure, the smallest of the 3. Workmen were recruited for the job, and they stayed at it 8 months. But it became too expensive to try and destroy it, and the process to remove the stones was insanely time-consuming. So now there's this notch in the northern face of the pyramid, and it's known as the Uthman wound. So these are the Great Pyramids of Giza as seen from a Pizza Hut in Egypt. You can get a slice of pizza and the Sphinx sits less than a quarter of a mile away. Now, when a lot of people think of the pyramids, they picture them in the middle of this large, sprawling desert. But as you can see, they are right outside of Greater Cairo. They're flanked on 3 sides by the roads and neighborhoods of Giza, a major city with a population in the millions. And there's even a golf course even hundreds of feet away. You can tee off and play and have views of the Great Pyramid. Now, the pyramids are the oldest of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. They're the only ones that still remain largely intact. So here's an aerial view of the Great Sphinx. You'll notice that the statue lies within an excavated pit. The Sphinx was actually buried in sand up to its shoulders until the early 1800s. Originally, the statue's head was carved from a natural outcropping of stone. To make the rest of the body, the sculptors had to dig into the bedrock. Because of this, it sits lower than its surrounding surface and untended and filled with sand over time. You'll notice that the statue's nose has long been removed. Some stories have claimed that Napoleon shot it off with a cannon when he arrived in Egypt in 1798, but other 18th century drawings suggest the nose went missing long before. Some scholars think even the Sphinx we see today was unfinished. There's evidence of large stone blocks, toolkits, and even lunch pails abandoned midway through a workday. So there's a photo and video making its way around the internet this weekend of the Sphinx with its eyes closed as if it was sleeping. Now, the Sphinx being one of Egypt's most iconic and visited sites, the images were quickly going viral. According to ancient mythology, if the Sphinx closes its eyes, it's a sign of the end of time and a sign of great events to follow. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities had to come out and state that the images were not real and were modified using Photoshop. The official Tourism Egypt page also made a statement denying that the statue had closed its eyes. It still remains unknown exactly who doctored the images of the Sphinx and why. There's a water erosion theory that suggests the Sphinx is thousands of years older than its accepted date of 2500 BC. Egyptologists, historians, and geologists have been debating this for decades. The theory is that the weathering on the Sphinx's enclosure walls is indicative of water erosion, different than the commonly accepted belief that it was caused by sand and wind. Now, if the weathering is caused by water erosion, it's so extensive that it could only be attributed to thousands of years of rainfall. The thing is, where the Sphinx is located, it's as dry now in Cairo as it was when it was supposedly built 4,500 years ago. Egypt's last period of significant rainfall ended sometime in the late 4th millennium BC. In short, this is when the Sahara experienced a climate change. Therefore, advocates of the theory say that this suggests the Sphinx must have been built at least 3,000 years prior, if not upwards of 10 or more. So this is the seal of King Tut's tomb before it was opened in 1923. The unbroken seal had remained untouched for over 3,200 years. There are over 5,800 items found in King Tut's tomb. Here are 3 of the notables. Number 1 is personal chariot. The vehicle was disassembled after his death and placed in his tomb. A small group has theorized that the boy king was killed after a fall from the vehicle, but most likely he died of disease or physical injury. Number 2, the statue of Anubis. Anubis was the jackal which ushered the souls of the Egyptian dead into the underworld. The canine was meant to be an effective guard for the grave. Number 3, and the debate has raged for decades over the iron dagger that was found in his tomb. There were 2 daggers found, 1 gold and 1 iron. Studies have persisted for decades that the iron was made from material from outer space or meteoric iron. Now, in Tut's day, iron was a very rare commodity and was considered even more valuable than gold. There's writings from the Egyptians of Tut's era reverently calling it iron from the sky. This is British archaeologist archaeologist Howard Carter as he opens Tut's tomb in 1923. Now, it would make for an interesting tale to talk about there being a curse on those who opened the ancient chamber. When Carter and his team opened the tomb, it was at a time when there was a boom in radio, telegram, and mass circulation of newspapers. This led to a media frenzy all across the world. The main event that led to the narrative of a curse was the death of Carter's financier, Lord Carnarvon. Carnarvon had been present at the official opening of the chamber. 2 months later, he died in Cairo after being bitten in the cheek by a mosquito. The bite led to blood poisoning, which progressed in pneumonia. Now, newspapers immediately hopped on the story and speculated that he was a victim of the curse of the pharaohs. Carter himself would obviously say that he did not believe in the curse. Carter died at 64 of lymphoma in 1939, and in reality, of the 58 people present with the opening of the sarcophagus, only 8 died within 12 years. But the story sold a lot of newspapers and the media ran with it, and they always pointed to a line supposedly found in another tomb, "Cursed be those who disturb the rest of a pharaoh."